Hello, BookTube. I have yet more mail. Could this be the beginning of one of those Twilight Zone episodes where you get a complete overabundance of the thing you claim to love? Will the mail just come every hour from now on until I'm saying no? Except I would never say that. No book person would say that. So it's only a few packages. So let's see what we have here. We got through a vast amount of packages last time in an expeditious short video, which I have heard in endless amounts from all of you that you do not want expeditious short videos. You want nice, long, rambly videos. I suspect, because you're not keeping your eyes on the prize, I suspect it's because I am droning on while you make dinner. Anyway, I can't prove that. So, all right, this next one is from Minotaur Books. This is a mystery novel, a historical mystery novel. This is by Elsa Hart, and it's called The Cabinets of Barnaby Maine. Comes out in early June. And the pub sheet refers to it as atmospheric and utterly absorbing. The book opens in the London of 1703, a time when the old approaches to science coexist with the new, and an elite community attempts to understand the world by collecting its wonders. Cabinets of wonders, that sort of thing. Sir Barnaby Maine, the most formidable of these collectors, has devoted his life to filling his cabinets with strange and singular objects gathered from around the globe. While the curious-minded vie for invitations to study the rare stones, bones, books, and artifacts he has amassed, some visitors come with darker purposes. For Cicely Kay, a passion for plants brings her to the Maine house. The only puzzle she expects to encounter is how to locate the specimens she needs within Sir Barnaby's crowded cabinets. But when her host is stabbed to death, Cicely finds the confession of the supposed killer unconvincing. She pays attention to details. Years of practice have taught her that the smallest particulars can distinguish a harmless herb from a dangerous one. And in the case of Sir Barnaby's murder, there are too many inconsistencies for her to ignore. Okay, all right. Well, that sounds fascinating. There's a small amount of caution here, of course. In current year, we want our protagonists to be women, or the odious term "people of color." But the further back in history you go, the more obstacles that presents, and the more you are tempted to damaging anachronisms in order to make that work. I myself think that you're not doing anybody any favors, including your readers, to twist believability. Would Cicely? I'm sure that she is trained to notice small details. Herbalists always are. Because, as the pub sheet says, the slightest problem could have you kill one of your patients by mistake. The slightest inconsistency. A small detail that another person would miss, you have to pay attention to because you're dealing with potentially dangerous items. But, could she investigate? Could she question anybody? Would she even have standing to talk to the law? Or involve herself in any way in their own investigation? In 1703, I guess I'm assuming that the author has done a large amount of research, so we will see. It's a question that comes up in increasingly in historical fiction. Sometimes it's done really poorly, other times it's done really well. One instance of it done really poorly that I hate to say is Lindsay Davis, who's a fantastic author of Roman era historical murder mysteries. Starring Marcus Didius Falco, and her new books star Falco's daughter, who is a chip off the old block in that she is a wisecracking, tough-talking daughter of her father, also a private investigator, also going down the mean streets of ancient Rome in order to find killers and put things to right, and it wouldn't happen for even 5 seconds. In the reality that Davis describes really well, it wouldn't happen at all. It wouldn't happen for even 5 seconds. So you have to do a massive amount of suspension of disbelief just to read those books at all. But there are other cases. The Mistress of the Arts of Death by Ariana Franklin, for instance, of her main character. She obviously thought long and hard. Well, okay, I want to set my murder mysteries in Angevin, England. I want to set my murder mysteries in 1180. But I want them to star a strong-willed, independent woman. And obviously, she sat back and obviously thought, well, okay, that isn't going to work. that just isn't going to work. How can I make this work? Is there a possibility, a way that I could have a professionally trained and indispensable independent woman in 1180. And comes up with a marginally believable pretext for it. So it can go either way. We'll have to see. Let's see here. I myself think that the present day is inexhaustible. You can't rewrite history. That's one of the reasons why the canon thins out for female authors before a certain date, because you can't change the facts on the ground. If women weren't given an education, or if they were beaten or run out of town if they had one on their own, if they weren't able to publish, then they would be thinner represented in the canon. Same thing with any other disenfranchised group. In foreigners in Rome, we have no works by foreigners in Rome. We have no works by slaves in Rome, except apocryphally and works for the stage. But anyway, you get my point. Oh, great. Okay, okay, all right. All right. This is another work of fiction. This comes out in late March. This is Rayanne Thane. This is Seaglass Cottage. Let's see here. An emotional story of homecoming that brings hope and healing to 3 generations of women. When Olivia Harper learns her estranged mother's been in a car accident, she packs up her life and heads home to the beautiful Cape Sanctuary on the Northern California coast. This is going to be a location romance, at least partly. While she says it'll only be for a few months, painful memories come flooding back. Her older sisters spiral into addiction, her mother's enabling, and the overdose that left her niece an orphan. As Olivia balances her own need with those of her injured mother and resentful teenage niece, it's clear all 3 Harper women have been keeping heartbreaking secrets from one another. And those will come to light in the Seaglass Cottage. Okay, fantastic. So, is this the first book in a series? Is this... Okay, I don't really see. Is this the first book in a series, or maybe not? Oh, okay. The first one I think we saw. I read it and liked it. It was called The Cliff House. I don't know if that's a motif. I can't remember off the top of my head the location of the Cliff House. That might have been Northern California as well. In which case we are dealing with the second book in the series. I have the Cliff House here, I think, somewhere. I should hunt it up before March. Okay, all right. So genre fiction, we're doing fine. Let's plow on here. Let's see what we have next. 2 pieces of genre fiction. Oh my! All right, we move on to nonfiction. This is by Jean Marco, and this is The Origins of the Anglo-Saxons: Decoding the Ancestry of the English. Pretty thing, with the gold flaking there, and it's a thin thing too, and posthumous, if I remember correctly. Yes. Yeah, in her final book, now in paperback for the first time, acclaimed historian Jean Manco draws on new genetic data to offer a groundbreaking history of the Anglo-Saxons, overturning prior assumptions. Who are the English? Their language and culture have had an impact on the modern world out of all proportion to the size of their homeland, but what do we really understand about their ancestry? Traditionally, they have been seen as the descendants of the Germanic peoples who poured into Britain after the Roman legions departed, today known as the Anglo-Saxons. Alternative theories have questioned this picture or suggested complications. At last, the astonishing progress made in extracting and analyzing ancient DNA means that theories can be tested empirically, shedding light on the movement and migrations of people in the past. Fantastic. So Jean Manco was born in 1946. She died in 2018, and she took a broad interdisciplinary approach in her work. And this was her last book, now out in paperback. Can't remember if I saw this in hardcover, but one way or another, this comes out in early April, and it's gonna be genetically grounded, a genetically grounded study of that mess, of the mess of bloodlines and population genetics. Good Lord. Okay. All right. And then the last one. We'll do the last one. Look at that. A mail haul in under 15 minutes. Good Lord. What is this next one? we have history, more fiction. Oh, it's neither. It's neither. Oh, my. Okay. Oh, my. All right. Wow. The pub sheet is on stiff, thick, grained, matte paper, like I've been invited to the palace. I haven't been invited to Buckingham Palace in quite some time, and I will never be invited back. So I know it's not that. It's just a fancy pub sheet. Okay, this is by Kevin Larimer and Mary Gannon. It comes out in early April, and it is the Poets and Writers Complete Guide to Being a Writer. So this is a book from the magazine Poets and Writers. And the subtitle is Everything You Need to Know About Craft, Inspiration, Agents, Editors, Publishing, and the Business of Building a Sustainable Writing Career. Good Lord. A soup to nuts, one-stop shop. Let's see here. This book, written by the two most recent editors of Poets and Writers magazine, is designed to be the what to expect when you're expecting for creative writers of all stripes. I love it. Everything you need to know from the experts you trust. Do any of you read Poets and Writers? Do any of you subscribe? We are thrilled to be partnering with Poets and Writers for the publication of this book on the eve of their 50th anniversary. The Poets and Writers Complete Guide marshals a half-century of knowledge and experience to create an authoritative guide. Its publication is part of the Poets and Writers' continuing commitment to empower writers by creating access to the information, guidance, and inspiration they need. We believe it will be a valuable addition to any writer's shelf and are honored to help bring it to the world. Okay, fantastic. I wonder if my local Barnes & Noble has Poets and Writers. I don't think I've read a copy in I don't know how long. It was a long time ago. A very long time ago. I think the last time I explored Poets and Writers, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to use it as supplementary material in a writing class. And I decided against it, not as a mark against Poets and Writers. I decided against all supplementary material, as I often did in classes of any kind. I would mull, and I would look in bookstores and libraries, and I would talk to other TAs and whatnot, and then I would just decide, I'm just going to talk to my students myself. I don't need any supplementary information. They can take notes on what I say, and I'll tell them what to do. It never worked out poorly. It always managed to fill the bill. I certainly had no problem filling my rooms. So what have we got here? What have we got here in this thing? Oh, wow. This is for you AuthorTube people. This is going to be a valuable book for all you AuthorTube people. What have we got here? So chapter 1 is getting started, establishing goals and making informed decisions, educational goals, columns from various Poets and Writers authors over the years, writing goals, publishing goals, financial goals. Part number 2 is inspiration. Part 3 is writing prompts. Part 4 is 100 notes on craft. Oh, this sounds fascinating. This sounds absolutely fascinating. You already know I don't subscribe to a lot of this stuff. Not Poets and Writers. I don't subscribe to Poets and Writers, but I mean metaphorically. I don't subscribe to a lot of this stuff anyway. This is extra. All of this is extra. And the one thing that drives me nuts, I'm not gonna rant about the book. The book seems utterly fantastic. The one thing that drives me crazy about books like this, magazines like this, seminars like this, is when they are subscribed to, bought, attended, with airfare and hotel fare, by people who are not writing. Because you can strip away all this stuff at first. I mean, this is going to be full of practical information on how to get an agent, how to shop your stuff around, that sort of thing. And that, you can't get enough tips on that kind of thing. This is going to have a lot on other stuff, too. See, literary agents, the book deal, self-publishing, writing contests, independent publishers, working with your editor. That's all valuable, absolutely valuable. But there's a lot of stuff in here about getting started, about inspiration, all that sort of stuff. And I have lost track of how many quote-unquote wannabe writers just lap up that stuff and are willing to pay to have people tell it to them when they don't actually write. When the number one rule, the first rule of writing is GM, generate material. If you don't generate material, then none of it matters. None of it matters other than that. If you're waiting for the right time, for the right mood, for retirement, if you're waiting for anything, then you're doing it wrong. And it has never been the case. Not once. There's not been one exception in my life. I've been nosing into people's creative lives for longer than your parents have been alive. And not once in all that time has somebody who told me, yeah, I'm waiting for summer break, or, I'm waiting till I go on vacation, or, I've got kids in the house, I'm waiting for them to go to college, or I've got retirement coming up in just 5 years, and then I'll have lots of free time. In every one of those cases, when I have had the honor, when that person has done me the honor of getting to know them, of being inside their life, so that I'm not just hearing about it in a letter, I know them well enough so that I know what they do day by day. In every one of those cases, there were vast Gobi deserts of wasted time. Huge tracts of wasted time already, without the great golden moment that's supposedly just down the line. Without waiting for that, there were already vast oceans of wasted time. And I'm not talking about misplaced time. Misprioritized time. I've had many wannabe writers who sink in 4 hours a day into video games. Or, I definitely want to get this manuscript done. I consider myself a writer. I've heard that so many times. I consider myself a writer. But you can't ask me to go without my 2 hours of crochet every day. I need that to calm myself. How about you be calm when you're dead? Yes, I'm not only asking for a little of that 2 hours a day, I'm asking for all of it. Stop that. If you want this to be real, you have to prioritize it. And prioritizing it means deprioritizing other things. That's what people don't seem to, the people that I'm talking about here in this example don't seem to get, is that you can't prioritize something without deprioritizing other things, because you people insist on being stone cold, drool down the mouth unconscious for 10 hours out of every 24. As long as you insist on that, you have precious little time. So the first part of this book, I'm going to be impatiently tapping my toe, because I guarantee it, I have never once, not once in all this time, have I had somebody say to me, yeah, I just don't have the time to write. I just don't. But I will someday. I know the moment when I will. Not once when I've had someone tell me that have I, upon examination, found it to be true. Not one time. There's not one exception. In every one of those cases, vast amounts of wasted time. Vast amounts. And the foremost examples just fall out of the tree. To the contrary, the one that I always use is Anthony Trollope, right? Whose works are critically acclaimed, they are studied, they are reprinted, we have done readathons and examined them in depth. We know perfectly well they are good, solid books. He wrote 40-something books, and of those 40-something books, probably 30 of them are worth reading and rereading, and probably 10 of them are masterpieces. He had a family, he had a wife, he had a busy civil servant career, and he had an exhaustive social life as well. He filled his day, and he still had time to write books that were not trivia. We still study them. They are still canonical. And when I mention him, people say, oh, well, I'm no Anthony Trollope. I'm no Trollope. They say, I'm no Anthony Trollope. Come on. That's not realistic. He's known in schools. He's world famous. Okay, well, but in every generation, I will also be able to point to ordinary people who have not published, who still do it right. On BookTube, you saw last year when we were talking all during November about NaNoWriMo. One of the people in our little neighborhood of BookTube who was enjoying NaNoWriMo the most was Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads, who is a husband, a father, has a brood of children who require at least occasional time. He also has a job, and don't let him fool you about his job. It can sometimes suck down huge amounts of time. And it has ancillary positions. In a small town, nobody wears just one hat. And he was doing it, hitting his word counts every day. And he's not Trollope. He's not a Trollope. You know what I'm saying. And you know I'm right. All the people out there who are saying, I know, I'm getting a different job at the end of the year. It's going to have a lot less overhead, a lot less work hours. That's when I'll be able to really concentrate. Or in only a year or two, I've got it marked on my calendar, I'll be retiring, and then the vast vistas of open time that will be available to me. No. You're already wasting that time, and you're a human. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the capacity for humans to waste time is infinite. So if you're already wasting enough time to be getting your novel or your nonfiction work done every day, if you're already wasting that time now, Trust me, you can waste the extra time you get when whatever your milestone is comes around. No, it has to be done now. You have to prioritize it now. Here, let me wipe the outrage spittle off this book, because this looks really good. I'm not venting against this book. I'm venting against a tiny amount of the book's raison d'etre. A tiny amount of the mind frame behind this thing is encouraging wannabe writers. And I have done more of that. I have done more of that than most people. I've been doing that a very, very long time. And the first step that I have encountered in encouraging new writers or dreaming writers of any vintage is getting them to face reality. The first step that I have to do every time is to get them to face reality. Because I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to agree when you tell me a blatant piece of flapdoodle. I'm not going to agree with you just to make you feel good. So if you tell me, I'm sure now that you know all the details, you can see I have no time to write now. I can't write now. I'm not going to agree. Because if you give me sufficient proximity to your world, I'm going to know that you're lying. Maybe you've been lying to yourself for so long that you don't even realize it, but either way, vast Gobi deserts of free time. You could get 5,000 words done a day. You absolutely could. And if you don't do that, if you're not doing that for no other reason than that you just don't feel like it, no other reason than that you just don't want to deprioritize something else, well, then you don't want this enough to put any more time or effort into it. And you ought to be honest about that, because if you're not, you're just going to be ending up every year spending money on plane tickets and conference reservations and whatnot and new notebooks without ever actually doing it. The first thing you have to do is decide whether or not you want this. And if you do, the first thing you have to do once you decide that is prioritize it. And that will come, because you're unconscious for most of your life, that will come hand in hand with deprioritizing other things. So I wonder if they address that. Somebody in here must address that. I wonder, though, the one question I have about this book, since I'm going on and on about it, the one question I have about it that I don't think the pub sheet won't tell me, and no, yeah, look at that, the copyright information doesn't tell me either. The one thing I'm curious about is how much of this material is old. Not in the bad sense at all. But how much of this, if I had the entire back catalog of poets and writers, how much of this stuff would I see? How much of this is reprinted? Now, technically, once upon a time, Avid Reader Press, 50 years ago, would have considered it absolutely incumbent on themselves to list that information on the copyright page. Not just the copyright date of this book, but the original print date of everything that's in here that's been reprinted. And they didn't do that, so I'm wondering if maybe that means nothing in here is reprinted. I find that hard to believe. That would be a huge overhead for a book like this. Well, I'll dig into it and find out. It looks fascinating. So it's down the line, but I will probably. It's not the type of thing that you're expected to read front to back sequentially. So I'll probably start dipping into it now, so that I'm fairly familiar with it when it comes out. All right. Well, that was a long digression, wasn't it? All right. So we have the Poets and Writers Complete Guide to Being a Writer. A big, essential reference book for all of you AuthorTube people. You're going to want to have this book. I bet. I'll let you know. I'll report back. First thing we're going to do tomorrow is check to see if Boston offers me Poets and Writers anywhere for sale. Any bookstores in the area if they offer it. Because I would like to get the old scent back. Then The Cabinets of Barnaby Maine by Elsa Hart. A historical murder mystery in which a young herbalist finds a prototypical scientist, the host of a cabinet of wonders. You know that a key to the murder is going to be in the cabinet itself. It's going to be in the collection. She finds him dead, and it doesn't look right, so she wants to examine it. And that's always a promising place for murder mysteries to start, right? Those of you who read murder mysteries, they're a bit on my mind these days, but that's always the best place, in my opinion, for a murder mystery to start, is that everything looks set, but somebody's instincts are bugged. Somebody's instincts are bothered by what looks normal to everybody, including the reader. I always like that. Then we have The Seaglass Cottage by Ray Ann Thane, 3 generations of a family coming to grips with long-buried secrets. And then Jean Manco's last book, The Origins of the Anglo-Saxons, in a pretty trade paperback. I believe this is a finished $17 trade paperback, so this will not be a hardcover. On the origins of Anglo-Saxons meant in quite literal sense of now that we have the ability to process genes, to do gene sequencing on almost every little bit of organic material that we dig out of the ground, and also on you and your village compatriots. Well, how much will that tell us? That genes don't lie. Genes don't have any ability to be misunderstood. So that's absolutely fascinating. Could rewrite a lot of what we know. So there you go. That's yet more mail. Good Lord. Oh my God. Did this 4-book mail haul last longer than the 15-book mail haul? I'm going to have to check. I don't remember, but I think it did. Oh no. Well, it's all because of writing. This is the thing you people don't realize when you urge me to do more writing videos, or even a lot of you have said start an AuthorTube channel. This is what you'd get. You'd get endless rantings. I have spent so much time thinking, writing, and also exhorting people about writing. That's all you'd get. It'd be a pure rant channel. So anyway, I'll wrap this up. Oh my God, I think the 4-book mail haul was longer than the 10-book mail haul. Oh my. I'll wrap this up before it gets any worse. Thank you, BookTube.